I hope your lunch was even half as good as my lunch, because my lunch was really wonderful. So this morning we talked about attachment and secure and insecure, but this was all about children with typical development.
Questa mattina abbiamo parlato di attaccamento sicuro e insicuro, ma solo nello sviluppo tipico dei bambini.
So now we're going to talk about attachment and autism and what it looks like. And you know, the history is very, very interesting and somewhat problematic about attachment in autism, because, as I mentioned in the morning, there were these ideas that children with autism are not interested in others or do not have the need for others.
E l'idea dominante fino a qualche tempo fa, e parleremo di attaccamento nei bambini autistici, era che i bambini con autismo non fossero capaci di interessarsi alle persone né di avere appunto nessun tipo di attaccamento, di sviluppare attaccamento.
And even worse, there was these theories, but really not theories, just ideas, that the mothers of these children were cold and rejecting and aloof and distant, and that this was at the root of the autism, that the autism was some sort of a defense against some really horrible mother in particular.
E ancora peggio, c'era l'idea dominante che le madri di questi bambini fossero la causa della loro patologia per il fatto di essere distanti, fredde e quindi distanzianti rispetto a loro, come se l'autismo fosse una risposta a questa tipologia di madre.
And in fact that the treatment that was advocated by some, for example Bruno Bettelheim, was to cut the relationship between the child and the mother and to put the child away in an institution to save him from his terrible mother.
Esatto, alcune delle terapie proposte e applicate per esempio in passato da Bruno Bettelheim, tra queste c'era quella di separare il bambino dalla madre potenzialmente dannosa e di istituzionalizzarlo per esempio.
I have a film on my computer, but we're not going to see it. It's like a long film where they interview the mothers of these children 30 years later, so now the children are already adults, and they really tell the story and of how they were treated and of course you know, it really is a shameful moment, I think, in the history of our field in general, that that people jump to conclusions like that, really very terrible conclusions, without any evidence. I think that's a problem, that it was just a clinical idea that had no evidence from anything, and yet they really made therapeutic or not therapeutic, horrible moves based on these ideas.
Ok, c'ho un filmato per esempio che non vedremo adesso che testimonia quanto queste idee siano dannose, un filmato di 30 anni dopo, di insomma di una testimonianza di 30 anni dopo, che comprova il fatto che senza evidenza clinica di queste idee, insomma, si possa agire in maniera anche drammatica e del tutto irrispettosa poi rispetto a nessun fondamento, delle teorie che non hanno nessun fondamento.
I want to take another moment just to develop this little point of history from the perspective of working with parents of children with autism. First of all, as I'm sure you all know, many families who come to us with children on the spectrum, you see the parents and you think these are wonderful parents. There's no question in your mind that they are wonderful parents, and any description of refrigerator or cold or simply doesn't fit. Okay, so that's, a good, most of the parents, they look like this.
Ok, la maggior parte dei genitori che vengono da noi infatti non corrispondono a nessuna di queste identificazioni con madri, frigorifero e con questa tipologia comportamentale che poi infatti è andata via via.
Every once in a while, you may encounter a parent, a father or a mother, who will say, maybe this was the father or the mother on which this theory was developed, because they look a little strange, or that they have all kind of difficulties.
E ci saranno sicuramente anche delle tipologie parentali in cui invece diremo: guarda, questi sono i genitori di cui parlavamo pensando a quella tipologia.
But this could simply be the genetic factor that we know is at the root of autism. There's a big genetic component in autism. And of course, if it's genetic, it means it's coming from the parents. And it could be that the parents, one of the parents, is expressing some of the behaviors, some of the traits, some of the characteristics of the child, or some other psychiatric type of characteristics that we know in families of children with autism, there is more psychiatric disturbance than in typically developing children.
Ok, e potremmo anche riflettere sul fatto che quello che vediamo nella tipologia genitoriale sicuramente ha qualche fondamento genetico. Non a caso l'autismo ha un grosso nucleo eziologico che è riferibile a cause genetiche, e nella tipologia dello spettro autistico sono molto ricorrenti, più che in altre casistiche, i disturbi psichiatrici.
But of course, this is not specific to autism. If you take any group of clinical children or children with clinical diagnosis, you will find that among their parents, there is a higher prevalence of psychiatric disturbances compared to typically developing children. So this is not specific to autism. So the fact that you see in some cases that the parents of children with autism carry some sort of psychiatric symptoms or disturbances could be, but it's not specific.
Ok, il fatto che ci siano dei disturbi psichiatrici o che una certa sintomatologia venga espressa anche dai genitori autistici non significa che sia un elemento determinante e specifico dei bambini autistici. Questo è se lo confrontiamo con il resto della popolazione, ma non è un elemento specifico dei bambini con autismo.
And then finally, we also have to realize that maybe say for example, you see a child on the spectrum and you see a mother or a father that seem to be aloof and distant and cold like this. And you say, aha, maybe Kanner was right. Maybe this is something in the mother that caused something in the child. But who knows that it's not the other way around? Maybe it's something in the child that impacted on the mother. Maybe to parent a child who is very non-responsive and non-involving of you, for some parents, is such a painful experience that they react by some sort of distance that they put between themselves and the child. And what you're seeing is not the effect of a parent on the child, but the effect of a child on the parent.
E vedendo un genitore così distante rispetto al bambino, potremmo facilmente dire: ecco quello di cui parlava Kanner, però in realtà non abbiamo la possibilità di dire se sia il bambino ad aver determinato per primo questo impatto in termini di reazione nel genitore o viceversa.
So for me, this is where, the way a researcher thinks, always thinking about, is it A that causes B, or B that causes A, or is a third variable C that causes both A's and B? The genetics, the control groups, these kind of issues, I think are very important to think about clinically as well. Because you can be jumping to a conclusion based on some sort of association. You see something in the parent, you see something in the child, and you have a little theory right there going on. And you may be completely wrong. You can end up also causing a lot of damage, and also putting your therapeutic effort in the wrong place. Because if you think, yes, we need to work with the mother because she's so cold, that's the wrong area to work on.
Cercare relazioni lineari tipo è A che causa B o B che causa A, che poi sono le riflessioni comuni a tutti i ricercatori, in realtà può essere molto dannoso non solo per il bambino ma anche nella corretta collocazione dei nostri sforzi terapeutici e negli esiti che questo può avere rispetto al bambino.
I think that again and again we need to appreciate the stress of living with a child on the autism spectrum, day in, day out, 24 hours a day, not 1 hour a week or 1 hour a day even, or whatever, like in therapy, but day in, day out, and what impact that may have on the parent. And as they walk in the door and we see them, and we meet them, we need to appreciate the context where they're coming from, and we probably are seeing them at one of their most difficult moments. And I think that all of us, in very difficult moments, we don't look that great, and when we're stressed, we don't seem to be very reflective or empathic or anything. And when you remove the stress, then you can see some of the more positive aspects coming up.
Ok, e dobbiamo sempre tenere presente che quello che vediamo è un aspetto del comportamento dei genitori che mentre noi viviamo il bambino per poco tempo, il genitore lo vive 24 ore su 24, e quello che noi osserviamo nel genitore è spesso un aspetto quello più stressante, del comportamento, che non ci permette, se non tolto da esso, non ci permette di vedere al di là di questo.
Okay, so we go back now to the history of attachment and autism, these ideas that we talked about, refrigerator mother, and also if you look at DSM, you're familiar with DSM, you know what it is, it's like the handbook of psychiatric diagnoses. You go back to DSM-3 in 1980, autism is described as a failure to develop normal attachment behavior. A failure to develop normal attachment behavior.
Ok, se facciamo un passo indietro, già abbiamo familiarità col DSM. Nel 1980 il DSM terzo attribuiva l'autismo a un fallimento nello sviluppo delle normali condotte di attaccamento.
In 87, a revision of DSM, attachment of some autistic children is bizarre, no or abnormal seeking of comfort at times of distress.
7 anni più tardi la revisione del DSM terzo invece parlava dell'attaccamento bizzarro di alcuni bambini autistici senza nessuna o con una normale ricerca di protezione nei momenti di disagio.
These descriptions actually were not based on any research. They were basically clinical impressions from experience of working with children. So, for example, no or abnormal seeking of comfort at times of distress. The mother leaves the room, the child doesn't seem to respond, doesn't seem to react, and the mother comes back and the child doesn't seem to react. So we say something is terribly wrong here, but of course, if you look at babies in the strange situation, you see that some normal babies don't seem to react that much also. So to what extent is this really a critical feature of these children? It was just assumed that this is a feature of autism.
Ok, quello che però leggiamo qui ovviamente proveniva in larga parte dall'esperienza clinica dei professionisti del settore che però tuttavia si riferivano a quello che avevano visto in contesti specifici, ma se pensiamo che anche nella strange situation abbiamo dei comportamenti che si rivelano diversi da bambino a bambino, riusciamo a capire che non c'era nessun tipo di relazione poi specifica con il bambino autistico.
Okay, so can you ask